Hello, Enwaz. Today, I am here to be interviewed by a mongrel dog of the Empire. It truly is shameful, the depths that we have fallen to as a society, that the Empire is considered a ruling body over the provinces of Tamriel. However, as that is the case today, I will be humoring the masses and allowing them to conduct this interview. You may proceed.
Well, thank you for meeting with me today.
I believe you will need to speak louder than that.
It is an honor to meet you and be in your presence.
I am surprised that you feel that way, given how I feel about your kind.
I try to ignore that. Alright, so starting with the first question.
Again, I think you will need to speak louder than that.
Okay. So last week you announced your survival after your supposed defeat at Red Mountain. Why are you just coming back now after over 200 years?
Well, I had a lot of things going on that I really needed to work out. You know, there was the whole power struggle with the Elm Civi, and Niravar really did a great job taking care of them. But then there was the Oblivion Crisis, and then Niravar wanted to go to faraway lands, and I had to supervise him to make sure he wasn't coming back before I unveiled my return. You know, on top of all that, there was also my secret project that I had going on. A lot of people don't know about that, and I think it really shows how far we, the Dunmer people, have come, because previously it was not something that I believe we would have been able to achieve, and we have really made great strides in technology.
When you say secret projects, what do you mean?
I cannot unveil that at this time. Just know there have been wonderful advances, grand and intoxicating advances, in the way we utilize farm equipment, such as the Argonians. And I believe you will find that crop rates and the agriculture in general is going to be significantly improved over the next few decades.
Sounds like a good plan.
Of course it is. It was mine.
Very well. So you claim that the destruction of the heart of Lorkhan was always your plan. But what about Akulakan?
What about Akulakan?
Don't you want it to drive the Empire for Morrowind and be worshipped?
Well, I want it to drive the mongrel dogs of the Empire from Morrowind, first of all. Just to be clear, you are a mongrel dog of the Empire. And that was always a facade. That was more Kagranak's vision. Kagranak began building Akulakan. I simply wanted people to believe that, but in reality, do you really believe that I, Dagoth Ur, the one true God, would share praise with some idol? Dagoth Ur does not think so.
Very well. That is your opinion. What are your plans now that you're back?
I have a lot of plans. I think a lot of people don't realize the role that I played in the acquisition of Solstheim. They think that was 100% the Nords being generous and trying to give us somewhere that we could stay. That simply is not the case. The eruption of Red Mountain was calculated, and in truth, it was completely done as an attempt to sway the Dunmer people to give us that land. And I believe that if you pay attention, you will find many more instances of this occurring over the next few decades. I believe that Dunmer influence will be spreading far and wide across the land.
And why do you say that?
That's my little secret that I believe you will find in time.
Okay. What were where were you, during the Oblivion Crisis?
So, during the Oblivion Crisis, I was very busy going into Oblivion Gates and conquering some of Mehrunes Dagon's land, as well as striking deals with him. He had his eyes set on this mortal, Mankar Cameron, which was truly his folly. I believe that if he would have gone along with my visions, he would have succeeded in destroying the Imperial City instead of just one small district of it. Unfortunately, there's only enough space in town for one of us devils, and he was not the one.
Just you.
Yes.
All right. What are your intentions for the beast races?
If you can even call them races. Ha 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 ha. Sorry. Anyway. If you really care about what I'm doing with the beast races, then fine, I'll tell you. But what's happening with the beasts is they are learning new forms of crop tilling, cotton picking, just general forms of servitude, especially in regards to farming.
Mm-hmm.
And the majority of them are doing this from birth. They know nothing else. Many people think it's cruel that I would have them living these lives of servitude. Personally, I don't think so. I think they were born and bred for this specific purpose. It's like a guard dog is only brought home so he can protect your family, right?
Usually.
An Argonian is only born so he can pick my cotton. And if he doesn't like that, then he can face the whip.
That's bold to say.
I don't agree with that. I think it's traditional. I think it is a time-tested practice, servitude, and I am hoping that it will continue to be that way for centuries or millennia to come.
Well, you obviously have very strong opinions on this matter.
Yes, and if you don't agree with these opinions, then perhaps you will find yourself on the servitude end of my people.
Moving along. How do you feel about the racism allegations?
As I said, I don't believe that there is any truth in there, because you can no more be racist against a dog than you could an Argonian. You can no more be racist against a dog than you could an Argonian. If I told you I don't like dogs, you would say I'm not a dog person. I think the same can be said of Argonians, since they are animals and not people. Just like Khajiit, they are animals and not people. There's no way you can tell me I'm racist against cats. I do not care if they can speak. They literally pee all over the floor and do not clean up after themselves. They are not people.
Right.
And as far as the Empire goes, I believe my reasons for disliking them is they're very valid reasons. I feel that if somebody came into your land and tried changing things without really giving your feelings a second thought, I think you would feel the same way that I feel. All I'm doing is making you go home. And maybe making you pay a little bit of punishment for your actions.
I never thought of it like that.
I figured most of you are Swits.
Well, please tell us about your experiences with Vivek.
Vivek, the warrior poet, floating up and down all day in his home, half blue, half gold. I heard a tale once that Vivek wrote this book, and so I looked into it. It's a very interesting piece of literature, fiction, despite what he would have you believe. 36 chapters long. He calls it the 36 lessons or the 36 sermons of Vivek. And I think it's really interesting that he would call it the 36 sermons of Vivek, because to me at least that implies that He is worthy of teaching on a level that only a god could. And powerful as he may have been, emphasis on have been, past tense, because I don't know if you've taken a look in the sky lately, but Bardao has fallen. He was no god. For him to have achieved Kim, and also have utilized the power of the Heart of Lorcan, along with his friends Sothasil and Almalexia, for the three of them all to have that power and still be too afraid to enter my home, Dagoth Ur, to replenish their power using the heart, that tells me that they feared me and the power of a true god, and a god knows no fear. Also, I think it's very necessary that I point out something that you would not know unless you are wise to the ways of the Dunmer and have been around as long as I have. And that is, Vivek killed Miravar.
Oh.
See, if the rest of the Dunmer people knew that, they never would have worshipped him to begin with. Miravar was a beloved member of our society. May he rest in peace. But Vivek did not allow them to know the truth. More propaganda, fear-mongering, so that they would hate me. Do you have any further questions?
Would you say you resent Vivek?
I would say once upon a time I resented Vivek because he built a wall around my home and I was unable to leave. That was very infuriating.
Of course.
But it all worked out. My plan worked. I tricked Niravar into destroying the heart. Now I'm free. I can do whatever I want. And the past 200 years have been a blast.
Good to hear that.
Thank you.
You mentioned Kim earlier. What is Kim exactly?
Okay, so to understand Kim, and you should be really careful while you're listening to this because there's a strong possibility that you will cease to exist or ever have existed while you're listening to this. So basically, the entire universe, the Orbis, the Mundus, all of it, is one big dream of the Godhead. And Kim is a state of being that you achieve when you realize this. And you have two options. You can either realize that you are not real because it is a dream, and you zero sum, which means you will cease to exist, you will fade out of existence, you never existed to begin with. Or you will achieve Kim by realizing that you are both real and not real at the same time, because it's kind of like Schrodinger's existence, I suppose.
Mm-hmm.
You know, are you familiar with Schrodinger and his cat?
Not quite, but if you would explain, that'd be lovely.
Okay, so let's say hypothetically you have a cat in a box. And inside the box is a vial of poison. So as long as you do not open that box, that cat exists in simultaneous states of being both alive and dead until you actually know the truth, because that is the way these things work. Without an observer, it exists in all possibilities at once. And so, if you do not zero sum, then you are existing in all possibilities at once, and you are both existing and not existing at the same time, and therefore you become the dreamer and have achieved Kim. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Wonderful.
Thank you for explaining it.
Of course.
Do you know what happened to the Dwemer?
That is a sad question that you have asked me. You just made me recall a conversation I had with Sweet Niravar 200 years ago, the same day he destroyed the heart. He asked me if I knew what had destroyed the Dwemer, and I told him then that I have not had ample time to research this, I have had plenty of time to look into it over the past 200 years, and I have a few theories, but nothing concrete as of yet.
All right. Sorry to bring up a sore subject.
Well, you should be.
I will know my place. Should Talos worship be banned, in your opinion?
Well, let me ask you this. If somebody was a mortal man and he became worshipped as a god because another god told you it was okay to worship him, would you worship him?
No.
Well, then there's your answer. You should not worship Talos. In fact, as I am likely the only god you have ever actually met, I would argue that I am the only god worthy of praise. Where are those other gods? I don't see them here. I am here.
That is true. I have never met another god before. I probably never will. So it is.
I would not expect you to as a mortal. You are lucky to even have met me.
That is true.
One moment, please. Someone named Grimlock would like to know what my thoughts on Argonians are. As I have previously mentioned, Argonians are born and bred for labor. They're excellent agricultural tools, farm equipment, if you will. You see, every year I go down to Black Marsh and I acquire eggs. Argonian eggs, of course. And I bring them back to Red Mountain. And I allow them to do my labor for me. Many of them assisted in the creation of Red Mountain's Akulikon. Because if you really think about it, since they're cold-blooded creatures, they are more accustomed to the hot environment, and that makes them excellent in those volcanic conditions. You may continue.
Thank you. So I know you just mentioned how you feel about other gods that do not exist.
They exist. They just should not be worshipped.
Well, that answers my question. I was going to say, which gods do you think should be worshipped?
So, I am the only god worthy of praise. I want you to look back on the past several thousand years, and I want you to think, what have the gods ever done for you? Are you an orc? No, you're not an orc. Do you know how the orcs came to be? Boethia ate someone, Trinimac, and it was disgusting, and he pooped him out. And he became Malakath, and all of his followers became the orcs. What kind of god would turn his people into living excrement?
It's a fair point.
No god that I would worship. But I, Dagoth Ur, vow to speak for the law and the land, and to drive the mongrel dogs of the Empire and all beast races and all Enwas from Morrowind. And perhaps from all of Tamriel. Do you have further questions?
Yes, I have one more.
Wonderful.
Wrapping this up, what are your thoughts on the white gold concordat?
The white gold concordat was an imperial mistake. It shows that the Empire are truly cowards. You know, long ago, when I was a young man myself, the Empire did not exist. The Imperials, back then, we called them Cyrodiils, and they were slaves, much like the Argonians. They were slaves of the Aelids, or the Heartland High Elves. And I think it's very telling that after spending hundreds of years not being enslaved by elves, they were so willing to return to subjugation by more elves. And all it took was a couple septims dying. The Septim Empire is gone. Now the Thalmor has reigned over the Empire. It's honestly sickening. It should have been me. And it will be me.
Well, that is all we have time for today. Thank you, Mr. Ur.
Please, Dagoth Ur.
Dagoth Ur, thank you.
All right. Well, thank you for your time here today. Now, be gone, Enwa. And for you, oh faithful viewers, know that your time is short. I will destroy all the beast races. I will drive the mongrel dogs of the Empire from this land. And if you do not join my ranks, you will perish along with the rest of them. Good night, my fellow Dunmer.